Hello, beautiful souls. You're here at the Indigo Rose Lounge. I'm so happy to have you here. This is Alyce Dylan, and I charge the space full of love and delight and healing and warmth. And I'm so happy that you are here to participate in it. If you do get anything from the content that I share, please remember to like and, yeah, subscribe if you want, but like it so that I can get these messages out to more like us that are feeling alone and isolated. And if you're really feeling generous, you could share it with someone that is like us and might benefit from it. So, addiction is something I've covered before, it's something I've gone into. The path of the indigo is not an easy one. We're born spiritually perceptive, we're vulnerable, we're emotional, we're very loving children normally, but also very perceptive. We often speak to the next world. We certainly are in communication with energetic information from very young, and then we go through childhood trauma as a result. Not only as a result of our perception, which can be traumatic, but also by the fact that we are so loving and so giving. And we know as children that we came here to love. We came here to love everything, everyone, all the beauty, all the yummy, all the yay. And we are met with congregations of five-sensed adults normally who have forgotten that or don't know that or think we're odd. And we learn early to shut down that part of ourselves. We can also just be traumatized with empathy. So, as children sitting in a room full of adults, I have a clear memory on this. How old was I? I think I was about 7. And I was in a collective of adults. Maybe there were some kids there, but mostly adults in the room. And there were a group of people who were supposedly friends and united. But the empathy in me could tell what every person in that room was really feeling. No matter what their face said, I could tell what they were really feeling. And it's the assault of that that's even worse than verbal feedback. It's the assault of the disapproval. It's the assault of the boredom. They're sitting there bored and you say, oh, it's the emotional assault that sometimes really gets to us and causes a lot of childhood trauma. And therefore, we self isolate. We don't want to be around people. We don't want to feel the icky stuff, especially people who are messy, emotionally messy. A lot of people are so needy and so damaged in themselves. They walk around life throwing their emotions all over the place. And we just don't want to be in that. So, as children, we shut down. A lot of us shut down our indigo selves or our emotional self at the very least. And then we get to adulthood and perhaps we take up meditation or we start on a spiritual path or we continue with a spiritual path. And all of our indigo toys come flying out the closet and then we have to deal with that. But if we make it to 25, in spite of all of that, we're 1 in a million because even the white coats have said that the spiritually perceptive, sensitive, sixth sensed, whatever label they're using at that moment, that only 1 in 20 of us gets to adulthood because it's tough. It's a tough one to be born as a loving soul into a world that is really on the cusp of a breakthrough into a more loving world, but not quite there yet. So here we are, hopefully adults. We are resilient. We are resilient. If we've made it to here, just that alone deserves a pat on the back. And I have a slightly different perspective on addiction. I truly believe that addiction is an outcome of childhood trauma. Like Mata Gabor would say, it's unresolved childhood trauma, which means that most indigos are vulnerable to addiction because we're all seeking to survive the impact of our childhood trauma. And just so you have a picture of how that works, let's put this in a video game setting. Okay, how about that? So you have this character in a video game who's going along and getting beaten up. So this character assigns a quarter of its strength and capacity and all of that, its life, to a dungeon to keep that part of itself safe, and it carries on. But now, as it carries on, it's working on its three-quarter capacity. It's weaker than it would be. Its understanding is lower. Its digestion is lower. And so really, it can only be a whole character again when it unearths that quarter of itself that it threw in the dungeon. And that's a lot of what the indigos go through. We assign our emotional self to the basement, kind of stick our emotional self at whatever age that we come up with this choice, maybe 7, maybe 5, maybe 3 even. We assign a part of ourselves to the basement and say, look, can't deal with you. In order to survive, I need to carry on as an intellectual being, or I need to carry on as a physical being with some intellect thrown in, but my emotional self needs to go away. And so that in itself makes us more vulnerable. It makes us weaker. Although it's a survival tool, in the long term as adults, we cannot function as whole, healed humans without our aligned emotional self. So we have to bring that self out of the basement, reintegrate ourselves, and become whole. But often before we figure that out, we get into addiction, because addiction is a distraction. It's a survival tool that we use to try and distract ourselves from the fact that we're going through life in pieces. We don't really have all the tools to deal with what we're dealing with, and our childhood trauma is still unresolved. And so we pick up a distraction or two to save ourselves from the heartache that we experience on a daily basis, or the incompleteness. If we have assigned a part of ourselves to the dungeon, then we feel incomplete. And so we need to go and unearth that part of ourselves to feel whole. But before we do that, we're walking around life feeling incomplete. And if you're self-isolating and incomplete, then you're feeling like you're not good enough, you're not whole. Why would anybody like you? Why should I even try? And all of that. So the process of reintegration as an adult indigo is to go and unearth the part of yourself that you blamed for your childhood trauma. And it wasn't your fault, but as a child, it is our natural survival process to blame ourselves, because we can't blame the adults around us. If we blame the adults around us, we create distance from them, and we know we need them to survive. So we'll take on the blame in ourselves and hold them blameless, because that's a part of our survival. We need the adults, right? Okay. So we get to adulthood, we start our healing journey. And you've often heard me say that distraction is a good thing. Distraction, if you're feeling not so good, very bad, right down on that emotional scale, feeling down there in sad or unhappy, and then distraction is wonderful. Go into your mind, go to a happy place, go and read a book that you love, watch a movie that you love, uplift yourself. A little bit of distraction is a great thing and can help to elevate your frequency and keep you up there. But what is the line? Where is the line between distractions that help you elevate your frequency and addiction? Where is that line? Well, when distractions take over to the point that they deprive your life of your presence, that's when they become addictions. That's the very point where they become addictions. Now, some addictions are easy to classify as addictions. There's hard drugs and even soft drugs. Addictions are anything that take you out of your present moment for long enough to create a negative impact on your life. Whereas a distraction can take you out of a negative frame of mind and uplift you and bring you back to your life in a higher state, in a positive state. So we need to be careful about where to draw the line on addiction and distraction, and when does one become the other. While we're on this, and addictions can be very subtle, especially for indigos. We can have a good knowing about No, hard drugs are bad, won't do that. This is bad, won't do that. But we can become consumed, for example, with rabbit holes, with truth soldiering, with distractions that, if we employed them in moderation and brought them into our lives in moderation, they would enhance our lives, raise our frequency. But when we, for example, like I think they call it doom scrolling, when we sit on social media and we scroll and we scroll, and we see all the bad news and we see all the awful things, and we come out of there feeling worse than we went in, that's not a positive, uplifting distraction. A distraction might be watching 20 minutes of cat videos, just as an example, something that would make us feel happy, something that would make us smile. Watching a movie that ends really well. Then the movie ends and we're feeling better and we can carry on with our lives. I'm often triggered because I'm an indigo. I have the same issues as most of us do. I'm often triggered by my addict friends because I want them to, when I see them slipping into their addictive behaviors, I kind of try and reach in and yank them out. But that's not about them, that's about me. It's my own projection of I'm cautious on myself. I monitor myself really clearly. I know when my distractions become detrimental to my life and when they serve me. But it's a very fine line, and you need to monitor it closely. Because if you allow your distractions to negatively impact your life, then there's even more reason not to show up in your present moment, and you're going to feel even worse. You're going to need even more distraction. You see how that works? So distract just enough. Distract enough to feel good, to feel positive, to feel uplifted, and then come back into your life uplifted and positive. If your distraction makes you feel horrible, then it's not a good distraction. I have a question, and I need to preface this by saying I have absolutely no judgment. I do not, in any, my curiosity. I'm curious, not judgmental. There are two streams of thought that pull in indigos quite a lot. And one of them is that we are babies of archangels. The other one is that we are, oh, three, sorry. Archangels is the one, aliens is the other one, and the third one is that we're the chosen ones. Have you ever heard that? We're a chosen one. Yay. Okay. And you know, if identifying with that makes you feel good and uplifts your frequency and brings you back into your life better, I have no objection to that. I don't know that those things are true. I've not had any experience of them myself. Yes, I've had encounters with angelic beings. Yes, I've hung out with concourse members and very elevated spiritual souls, but they've never shared with me that we are the babies of them. And then the whole alien thing is a whole nother kettle of fish. So what worries me is that the indigos are so vulnerable to addiction that, or let's call it positive distraction too, that we can be sucked into this fairy tale environment where we are either chosen, anointed, babies of other beings thing. And that can become such a pull that we get sucked into that unreality, if indeed it is an unreality, and who am I to judge? But if it is an unreality that we get sucked into, we are very vulnerable to doing that. And I never want people to be preying on vulnerable people. If you feel that it resonates for you, and if it serves some purpose in you, then please, I'm not saying don't do anything that will elevate your soul, but please be aware that you are possibly, if you're indigo, even if you're spiritually perceptive and recently awakened, we do have a vulnerability to addictive distractions. And I would be careful about allowing this created story to distract you from your real, honest, glorious, beautiful soul self. You are beautiful. You are wonderful. You are resilient. You've made it to here. And your purpose is to love, and you want to love, and All you need to do here is to identify and remove all obstacles that have been placed in your way or in the way of all people to love. And if you do that, find your way back to love. If you conquer fear at every turn, you will be good. You will be better than good. You will be joyful. You will find bliss. You will make it back to yourself. So the dance between love and fear is real. There are a lot of reasons that keep being fed into the narrative on why we should be afraid of this or afraid of that. And that's just not what we came here for. We didn't come here to be afraid of everything. We came here to love. We came here to love and to figure out how to love all the way through all different kinds of scenarios. And so if you can figure out how to stand in love, and how to be your authentic self and reintegrate yourself back into one whole, healed, and beautiful human being, then you'll already feel so much better. And you won't need to distract yourself. You won't need to spend hours and hours in fantasy lands. You'll be able to show up in your life and be full of joy and appreciate the beauty and appreciate life as it is. And so that's what I feel like my mission is to find people, or to outline, chalkline, if you like, for people, a way back to joy, a way back to love that doesn't involve self-sabotaging behavior. So indigos, we may well be the key to world peace. Who knows? We certainly came here for a reason, and that reason wasn't to be afraid. We didn't come here to be afraid. We came here to love. And so if you can rediscover in yourself the 3-year-old self, 5-year-old self, 7-year-old self that knows that you came here to love and that you can love just freely and absolutely, then you found a path back to love. Always.